goes student and then came multi, and a lot of people think multi might lead student, but that's not true. And I know a lot of management teams and developers are now, kind of venturing or already were in both arenas, but some are just starting to go into multi.
Well, what's up, everyone, and welcome to the Student Housing Insight Podcast. I'm your host, Wesley Deese. I'm also the CEO of Student Housing Insight. If this is your first time finding us, Student Housing Insight is a platform for off-campus student housing professionals to network, share ideas as well as data. And you can find out more about the platform at studenthousinginsight.com. And if you're, as I tell everybody in each episode, if you're walking or running or driving, please don't stop to write that down. All of the links that we'll talk about today, we will provide those in the show notes. So just go there to look for them. So in addition to the podcast, we also host the industry's monthly webinar for the U.S. that's called Shop Talk. And each month we provide legislative and policy updates from the National Multi-Housing Council that are impacting our industry specifically. Shop Talk also provides a monthly overview of pre-leasing data on a national and a regional basis, along with a panel of operators who provide their on-the-ground observations of what they're seeing happening from a pre-leasing perspective. And we typically provide a topic of the month. This past month, we were talking about international students. So if you're an owner and operator of a property or properties that cater to a lot of international students, you want to make sure that you go check that out. You can look for it on our YouTube channel. You can also find it at shoptalk.info because we have all of our previous meetings logged there that you can go and link to those anytime you want to see one that maybe you've missed. And in addition to looking at previous shop talks that we've got stored there, you can also register to receive monthly invites so that you don't even have to go to the website. We send those out each time the registration link is open for a new webinar, and you can just click on your email and go straight to the webinar page and make sure that you've got a calendar invite in your calendar so you'll know when we're having our next shop talk. And again, we'll provide all those links in the show notes as well. Well, this is a very special episode of the podcast as we're celebrating a company that has been very instrumental in my career and the Student Housing Insight platform. That company is SouthPark Interiors. And if you've never been a part of a new development or a value add acquisition in student housing, you may have never heard of SPI. They're based in Charlotte, which is about 30 minutes from our office. And, as you might have guessed from the name, they are an interior design firm. The founder and president of the company is Martha Thomley, and her partner and principal of the firm is Lisa Brooks. So, what's different with SPI versus the dozen other, interior design groups that work in the student housing space? They're talented, sure. Other designers are, highly educated in the field and passionate about their work. I honestly don't know a design group that I can't say that about. But the difference with SPI is the road that they have traveled and really how it kind of intersected with the student housing industry. That intersection, it happened while Lisa was traveling on vacation. She'll tell this story in our interview. And she just happened to be in an airport or lunch. I can't remember exactly, but she just starts a conversation with some other folks from Charlotte. And those folks from Charlotte just happen to be like the entire executive team from Campus Crest, including Ted Rollins, the late Ted Rollins, who recently passed away, I think, in the past 3 or 4 years. That was their founder and CEO. But fast forward a year from that just kind of chance meeting that happened while Lisa was on vacation. And SBI ends up finding themselves as a kind of a integral, I guess, part of the development team that would end up, I think they delivered over 40 student housing projects across the country. And, now fast forward to today, and I would say there's hardly a student housing market in the country that SouthPark has not done work in. And this year, Martha and Lisa, they're celebrating SBI's 20th anniversary. SHI got started in 2017. So, it hasn't been quite 10 years yet. And to reach a milestone like 20th, I think that just says a lot and gives a lot of reason for celebration. And I really wanted to sit down with them and talk about this journey that they've been on. And, just really, why are they so damn good at creating spaces that resonate so deeply with the college students that we serve? And it was a great conversation. What I really love, about about interviewing or having these type of podcast discussions with folks that are in the Charlotte area is I actually get to go and see them face to face. And so Martha opened up her home and allowed me to bring in some cameras and microphones, and we just had a really great chat, and wanted to share that with you. So here's my conversation with Martha and Lisa. Martha, Lisa, it's been 20 years. Mm-hmm. I can't believe it. Can you guys believe it?
No, also.
No,
does it feel like 20
it.
years?
Nobody's more surprised than us that we're sitting here together 20 years later when we first started. Mm-hmm. Truly.
So, Lisa, it was 8 years ago that we got started with this podcast. Mm-hmm. And I asked if you guys could come on and just talk about design. Let's let developers and operators know, how important it is to have somebody on the front end of a development from a design standpoint. And it was so funny because now I don't talk to an architect or anybody.
Thank you.
That is not, that's just part of their process now. And I feel like you guys were really kind of the first ones that were getting in front of developers and saying, look, before you start, let's just have a conversation.
Yes. It's truly been a huge part of our success has been getting in it, the inception, of the mindset of a developer right from the beginning. But it's funny because sitting with you so long ago, I remember you asking me, and I had like this huge, all these desires and hit lists and stuff. And that was even 10 years ago. And now it's just fun at 20 years to say that, check. So great.
Yeah. Well, you guys have done several other podcasts since then. Mm-hmm. You guys have been on a lot of our Look Who's Going to Austin, Look Who's Going to Vegas videos and that type of thing. But for folks that are in our audience listening to this and hearing about SouthPark Interiors for the first time, what is it that you guys do today specifically in the student housing realm so they've got a good understanding of that?
Well, I think specifically we love to be, as you said, involved in originally on the ground up development projects. It was kind of changing the mindset for the developers and the architects when we said, we want to be in right at the beginning. They're like, we don't need you. Y'all are the design. We don't need you. And we're like, no, you do need us right from the beginning. And once we established that with our clients, they realized how important that was for us to be in the beginning. Just even like helping them create the tour paths for their management teams and, how much time their employees were going to be out of the office while they were showing a property, or, how big their pool needs to be, how big their fitness rooms need to be. What are the features that the kids are looking for? What's their Wi-Fi? Those types of things that they might not have thought about that we bring to the table. Back then.
Let me clarify, because we don't want to talk down to anybody.
Back then. That's true.
Back then.
But so, I mean, we've seen this whole industry just evolve, and we were so fortunate because when we first started 20 years ago, there wasn't a whole lot of attention paid to so much of the amenity spaces for the students themselves and making the property feel more like a home to them versus just a place to go to school. So it's evolved like that for sure.
So let's talk about those early days, and really, we don't have to go back into how you guys got into design and that type of thing, but just to go back to kind of the intersection with student housing, how did that all come together?
I always hate this question. No, I'm just kidding. So I actually was on vacation. Our name is SouthPark Interiors, obviously, and we were doing really well.
With Charlotte, yeah.
Yes, and we were doing really well in residential. We really were doing well, but again, personalities versus budgets. And I was on vacation, and it just so happens that one of the biggest development groups at the time was sitting at a table away from me, talking about how they were based out of SouthPark. And that just kind of started a conversation in which, I chased them down for about a year until we got our big break into student housing. And then it just snowballed from there. And then we've just been so blessed because what we wanted to do and what we set out to do was bring that boutique hotel feel to student housing, which I venture to say, we were the first to do that. And everyone wanted to do that and started doing that. And so because of that, we met some incredible people and got to work with incredible teams like, Graystar, Price Company, and all of those people. And that's really how it snowballed and how we got into student, to a point where we were like, let's vary our portfolio a little bit and do multi. And fortunately, all those developers are pretty much in multi as well. Yeah. So it's been kind of went like that.
Well, and it's, when you find a partner, an interior design partner that things mesh well and they do a great job, it's just, you want to take them into everything, I feel like.
Yeah, we have seen that. We've seen that with several of the developers that we work with, where we feel like we're part of their team at this point. We're not just the design firm that they hire outside. They bring us in on the front end, and we're actually truly, we have a seat at their table. We're part of their team.
Yeah. Now, not too long after that intersection with student housing, you guys got started with some development yourselves. Yeah. Do we want to talk about that?
Briefly.
Well, I think honestly, even though it's like a curse and a blessing again, because it makes us think like developers and management teams instead of design firms. And that also has been a huge difference with our team versus others is we think like them and we want to give them the most for their money. And, we want to keep, all the markups and all that stuff as low as we can and just like have impact dollars. And so that has been like the biggest thing for us was being able to do that.
Right. It was almost like going through the master's program of development at that time. We learned so much from the management teams, the operating teams, the development teams, the construction teams, site work on a site. I mean, we learned so much in that arena. And we also understood how to help the developers put together their loan packages, what kind of yields they were chasing at the end of the day, what their rent rates needed to be. So, I mean, we really have a leg up when we're talking to a development firm who may or may not have experience in student housing. We can help guide them a little bit if they're new to the arena. And I think that really gives us an advantage over a lot of other interior design firms.
Yeah, you're exactly right. And I can kind of, provide some, testimony to that. So I'm probably about to tell you guys a story I haven't told you before, but we've got several clients in common. And of course, one of those is the late Wes Bradley with Bradley Companies and University Housing Group. And I worked for them for 7-8 years, I guess. And that Wes's father, Bob, was, really kind of in charge of that design process for the time that I was there. And he had someone, they were based in Roanoke. He had a designer there that he had worked with, had done his lake house and all this kind of stuff. And there was no separation. Like she was always going to do the development. And after some things had changed and I brought them on as a client and found out that you guys were working with them at the time. And I was like, so how did you convince your dad? And he's like, because they're developers. They know the talk.
Wow.
They know what what
funny.
we're concerned about, and it just
I always
it came
thought she
through.
was making that part up.
No, that was as soon as
Joking.
you mentioned that, I was like, I remember that specific conversation.
Wow, that's amazing.
Because it wasn't so much why did you bring South Park on? It was more of how did you get your dad to
Agree to that.
Oh, that's awesome.
So and that's what it was.
Wow,
So
that's amazing. Wes was a huge part of our success story early on. I think he actually sat with me personally and helped me come up with the language in our first design agreements to developers because he wanted to make sure we were covering ourselves on everything and also making sure that everything that the developer was looking for was actually in our agreement. So
And in our services.
yeah, and I thank him every day for that.
Yes.
Yeah.
It was such a huge part for us.
yeah. So and I mentioned earlier, I do feel like when I talk to most architects now, and talk about kind of their process, they're bringing the designers in early on. Sometimes it's an in-house designer. Sometimes the developer is making sure. Kind of just break down that process just a little bit as to probably maybe some key things that you guys may have noticed. Developers were just, and you hit on a couple of these points earlier, but I just kind of want to dig into that a little bit more and just, what were kind of some key things that you saw, either mistakes that they made or just things that they didn't capitalize on well that they could have?
I mean, from outside of a design perspective, because those of people who don't know us, Martha's really the, design side, and I was more of the, anybody who knows us knows I'm more of the sales side. So I always had a passion for like leasing and sales and seeing what worked and like function and so forth. So, the first thing that pops into my mind that I remember from the very early stages was I couldn't believe that so many people had people working for them back then that they didn't really talk to about their opinions. So the leasing teams.
Yeah.
Leasing teams and management teams have always been sort of a passion. And I love working with management teams just because we want to make it work for them, right? Because they're the ones who have to lease out that property. And so we were the first team. Then we brought design to their offices. We brought, people would do everything except for the leasing office when we started. People would, think about everything except maybe their break room or, where they sit all day or, how it functions for them if they want to have events. And so I think we were first to kind of get in there and ask them their opinions and ask how they wanted it. Because it used to be just sold to the parent, before the days of online. It was sold to the parent. The parent would come and check it out, and so that obviously has changed. But for me, it was involving leasing, and it's still today very, very important to us. Like the functionality, kind of. We do market research now. We see what's kind of around as far as, is it a studious? Is it a place where it's going to be studious? Is it a place where it's a party school? Like those sorts of things to try and make sure that the leasing has no problem leasing up with our designs.
Yeah. And what I've loved on projects I've been involved with you guys is the intentionality of bringing in, what's local, as far as if it's a particular local artist and just, some things that, if you're coming from a certain state or you live in a certain state, you recognize, maybe it's the state bird or whatever, but you guys recognize those things and bring it in such of a cool way.
Every time.
Yeah, it's nice to have that nod to the demographic around you. And, when we first started, everybody thought that all the properties had to look like their schools. Yeah. Everything needed to be the school color. Everything needed to have the same, layouts, the same logos. And we were like, no, this is where you live. Yeah. This isn't where you go to school. So we really did change that face of the student housing amenities, I think.
Yeah. I want to ask, because this is a question I've probably never asked you, but I've seriously thought about it. But Where do you guys pull inspiration from? Are there designers or architects that that play into either personally how you like to do design, or just who do you have a admiration for?
I think that can come from a lot of different areas depending on the personality of the designer at the time. I mean, we have a couple of girls in our office that get to travel extensively, and they pull a lot of their inspiration from some of their travels that they get to experience. But I mean, so much of it is trying to follow the trends. And I always tell our team, if you pay attention to what's going on in the Western world and you look out at what's going on in Europe and in Asia, those trends are always coming our way. Yeah. And so in order for us to be kind of ahead of the curve, those are the areas that we look to for inspiration for some of our upcoming designs.
Gotcha.
For me personally, and it's always been this way, it's boutique hotels and then some residential, like some really strong residential people. I happen to love Sean Anderson. Right now I'm kind of obsessed with his work. We kind of tend to be like that too, a little bit more masculine and moody. I think that's sort of like a South Park vibe, is just to be a little bit more moody and masculine, nothing cliche or nothing themed or, I think we really love to be inspired, especially Martha and I, by whoever is kind of out there, in AD magazine and so forth, and bring that to the student world. One of my favorite movies, is How the Sweater Goes from, the runway down to the Gap. And I kind of feel that way about, AD, and like she said, some groups that I'm obsessed with a group out of London. They actually helped us do our logo, and they do amazing work. And we look at their work and are like, this would be so cool in student. Yeah. So, especially student. That's why student is such a passion for us, is because as designers, you can do pretty much anything every time, start new. And we're lucky because we have developers that trust us now. Yeah. And they just will go with it. Yeah. And it's just really fun. Every project can be unique.
Yeah. I want to ask some questions about the team that's in place now, because 20 years ago, it was really just the two of you guys, right?
Right. And and Jenny.
And so now what does the team look like? And I guess kind of the question I want to ask is, what things are you encouraging with them as far as what they bring into, to the process? And
well, our team now, like you said, we started as an army of 3, and now we have 15 staff members.
Oh, wow.
That work with us, and we have 4 different divisions within our company. So aside from our design division, we also now have a sales and marketing division, which Lisa heads up. And we also have an accounting division, and we have a logistics division. So we are truly a turnkey operation from a developer standpoint, who can come to us as a one-stop shop. As far as the team goes, I mean, we've had some amazing, talented girls work with us. Some of them that, it's the nature of the beast. We hire these young, talented women, and then they want to start their families and they move on and have their babies and they don't come back. So that's been a challenge and a blessing.
Yeah. However, we have lifers. We do have lifers.
We do have some lifers.
We have people who have been with us, and I think that speaks volumes. We have people who've been designing with us for 7 years, 10 years, 12 years. So we have people who have stayed with us for a really long time. And
we're very proud of that.
Yeah, we're all really close. I think one of the things that Martha and I try to keep in line for SouthPark is, because we love the fact that people kind of know our work. They know when they bump into it. And that is, like I said, we encourage them to be a little bit more masculine in their design. We encourage them to be, obviously unique, like everybody says, but maybe a little bit funny.
A little quirkiness.
We have brands, there's beautiful, talented design firms out there. But I think the reason you always know when you step in is because ours are always like a little bit weird. Like the sliding board in the middle of Austin is kind of weird, So it's, we love that. We love that we like to surprise our developers. And plus we've been doing it so long. We like when they surprise us, when the design team surprises us, it's the best. We love seeing that.
So you mentioned hotels earlier, and I know you guys are provided design services for hotels. Which came first, student housing or hotels?
Student
housing.
Gotcha. And I guess it's kind of a perfect parlay because a lot of what you guys do is not just on the amenity areas and that type of thing, but actually the student furniture,
the units,
unit
furniture.
You've had partnerships with furniture companies, and designing lines for them and stuff. So talk a little bit about that, because I think that's such of a key point. And
it is.
If I was going out and developing student housing, that's or going out and developing hotels, I think looking to the student housing realm probably makes a lot of sense, especially when you're talking about kind of that boutique kind of thing where you want the rooms to tell a little bit of a story, right? So,
I think students ahead of the game in the world. A student, it goes student. And then came multi, and a lot of people think multi might lead student, but that's not true. And I know a lot of management teams and developers are now, kind of venturing or already were in both arenas, but some are just starting to go into multi. Call us. I always think it's interesting that we do kind of lead that. And when we kind of started back then, it's interesting because nobody cared about certain things like unit furniture. But we did, because you design the units, you work on something for 2 years, the designers make the clubhouses and the amenity spaces, and then the unit's great. And then in would come unit furniture that maybe was just like everybody else. Or it was more dorm like when we started 20 years ago. And so, we found partners that were willing to kind of bring it up a notch, and it's made a huge impact in leasing.
Well, and what I've seen that you guys have been able to do, especially with, partnering with furniture companies, F3, and folks that are already in the business of making student housing furniture. One of the key things when I first heard that, I think Wes Bradley may have been the developer or maybe it was the deal we were working on in San Diego. I can't remember, but there was, kind of this thought in my head of, okay, but what happens when that desk loses a leg? And we've got, but design wise, you guys have put things together that number one last a long period of time. And I can tell you that because
it's still there when you were at Statesboro last week, right?
Exactly. And not just that, but you guys seem to bring in some elements so that, if something's got to be replaced, it likely can be repaired with sourcing things locally and that type of thing. So
a lot of thought had to go into that too. And it would depend a lot too on whether a developer was in a hold position or a sale position. But if they were in a hold position, I mean, you knew that you needed to design furniture that would stand up to a 5 to 7 year lifespan. And also it had to stand up to a student jumping on top of it if they wanted to. So, I mean, that was a challenge for Lisa. Lisa actually led the industry on creating residential style student unit furniture.
It also has to stand up to the competition that moves into town.
Right.
I mean, honestly, that's why we love F3. We partnered with F3, but we've partnered with other groups too, just on the design side. We just introduced a line with ULoft. They've been doing it for 35 years, but they've got a young generation of young men coming out of there, and we just created an awesome line that we're so excited to see implemented, and we've sold some so far, and it's really exciting to see the students being able to live like they're like me.
Right.
So Martha, 20 years, what's been the biggest accomplishment over that time as far as SBI and what you've been involved with during that time?
I think at this point, our biggest accomplishment has been able to form relationships with developers who call us for repeat business. I mean, initially we had to work so hard to get a name for ourselves and get out there and prove ourselves to different development groups. And now that we have established ourselves in the marketplace, it's so nice to have developers call us again and not even hesitate to say, okay, next, we've got this project coming on board. We've got this project coming on board.
Yeah.
And being able to maintain the staff and the design aesthetic that we've been famous for throughout the industry, to be able to carry that and keep it fresh.
Yeah.
And that's been probably one of our biggest accomplishments. And maintaining our employees as long as we have.
Yeah.
That's been huge for me personally.
Yeah.
It's true. Kudos to our team, because I can get sales all day long. Everybody knows that, but it's hard to keep them. And I mean, kudos to our design team. And we have so much talent and logistics and, just the whole firm, because there's nothing worse than catching your whale
So let's talk about
and
that.
risking it, with a bad team. And I don't have that problem. So it's awesome.
So we've had that conversation several times about the big well.
I know. I wonder what you're afraid of. You're afraid I'm going to say something.
Well, no, I wanted to ask that question of, who's, because I think all of your clients are probably dream clients, right?
Yes.
But is there a client out there that is still a potential client?
Well, I mean, I have to entertain myself, right? So, and that's
we all
what I
have
do.
to have goals, right?
Yes, we all have to have goals. And it's just kind of a fun thing for me is to say, who have we never been able to really work with? Or we might have even got in front of them, or, our paths have just crossed. And, I was trying to think about that ahead of time, and it is an accomplishment, and it feels so good because we have worked with just so many of the greats out there, and still are. But I always have a hit list, I call it. I would say right now it's people who are aligned with what we want to do.
Yeah.
Because we have that luxury now, right? So anybody who really wants to do something different, anyone who wants to just have their project signed and be the one that they walk, their money people through. And I would say LV Collective is a group like that. I would love to work with them. Hello. And I have been trying to catch that Scion since I got, really got going, and I'm going to get him before I retire. I would really love to work with Scion. I just think that we have like kind of that same, and then, I absolutely still have a huge, huge heart for the Bryce Company. I really love that group. Yeah. I love that they're family like we are. They gave us a huge break many, many years ago. I love to just constantly chase. We did so many projects with them, and, obviously everybody has to, vary their portfolio. I think Donna's husband said it's kind of like that song Pina Colada,
Well, and you guys had furniture lines that were named after Adam Byerly.
Yeah, we have the Byerly. Hello. Yeah, we have the Byerly. And so, I love Adam and those guys. And also all of the leasing, they still call us. And we still have small things, It's like nothing bad happened, but I'd love to work with them again. I really would.
Yeah, no, they're a great group. And to kind of see the team that Donna's put together, as she's going into retirement.
Right.
It's very similar situation.
Yeah,
right.
It's awesome to watch all of her Facebook ventures.
I know.
As I call them.
Yeah,
And,
that's always been our goal. And Martha keeps swearing if I just sell a little more, she'll take us all to Paris. But it hasn't happened.
That's how she to the Donna level yet.
Yeah, that's how she keeps me going, I guess.
So, when I was driving over here today and was kind of thinking about 20 years and, what that must mean to you guys. Mm-hmm. And I'm sure we could open up a bottle of wine, and 5 bottles later, we could probably get through.
Still be talking about people.
we could get through at least 10 of those 20 years. Mm-hmm. But three words that would kind of describe the past 20 years. What would that be for you?
Oh, I guess probably my 3 would be exciting, challenging and so satisfactory.
Mine would definitely be thankful.
Yeah.
Very, very thankful. Really fun. And, I would say, gosh, just blessed. Just blessed.
Yeah.
Truly blessed.
Well, you guys have certainly blessed me coming into the consulting world.
And thank you. Thank
and
you.
Trying to get things started. It really, and I've told you guys this 100 times, and I'm probably going to cry saying this now, but
so sweet.
Thank you guys for
You're welcome.
what you poured into me, and
We believe in you. You're amazing.
We'll keep this going. So.
Thank you.
Wes, so
Thank you
sweet.
so
Thank
much.
you.
Well, thanks so much. I'm looking forward to getting this episode out for everybody
Thank you.
to listen to, and
Thanks for talking with us.
it should be out before Interface.
Oh,
So
that would be awesome.
That's great.
That would be
folks
great.
who should they get in contact with if they want to meet up with you guys at Interface?
Probably
Audrey.
our director of sales, Audrey Robinette, our director of sales.
Yes.
Well, perfect. We'll make sure her email is in the show notes. And again, thanks so much.
Thank you,
Okay,
Wes.
thank you, Wes. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Ooh, that was so sweet, Wes. It is amazing when you think about everything that we've all been through.
I know. And the people.
And when you're sitting here just listening to you today, when we're talking about all these people that our paths have crossed with, and we all know who we're talking about. It's like,
so cool.
wow.
Yeah.
I know.
It really is.
Well, again, a big thanks to Martha and Lisa for their time. If you're looking to connect with SouthPark Interiors, they will be at the Interface Student Housing Conference. That's just here in a couple of days from the launch of this. So if you're in Austin for the conference, or maybe you're in Austin and you're not going to the conference, but you would really like to meet with them, we'll put their contact information in the show notes so that you can reach out to them, be it at the conference or anytime afterwards. They're fantastic ladies, just very talented designers, as we discussed in that interview. And I think you'll be really excited to talk to them about your student housing project, regardless if you've got something that's active and looking to come out of the ground soon, or maybe acquire. It's just great having them as a connection within the industry, and I would certainly encourage you to reach out to them and make an introduction. Well, guys, that does it for this episode of the Student Housing Insight Podcast. I do want to remind everybody that if you're involved with the operations of the student housing industry, off campus or on campus, make sure that you register to attend our monthly webinar, Shop Talk. You can get more information again and register for those monthly invites to the webinar at shoptalk.info. So wherever you are in the world, make it a great week, and let me know if there's a topic you want us to cover, or a person you think we should interview. Would love to hear your feedback on that. My email will also be in the show notes, and you can contact us through the website as well. Well, again, thanks so much for taking time to listen to this. Take care, and we'll see you on the next episode.